all my acclaims, the joy and the pains, I'm making them yours. Lord, I offer my life to you, everything I've been through. Use it for your glory, Lord. I
technical problems. Today we'll be beginning the Mass a little late. Kindly join us with the hymns that we are singing to prepare ourselves for the virtual Holy Mass until the technical issues are being solved. Thank you.
What a wonder you are. You are so gentle, so strong and so kind.
Mass as we begin it now.
Good evening, friends. Ace Coyle welcomes you to this virtual Holy Mass. This Mass was celebrated in the Archdiocese of Toronto by Father Seamus. Before beginning the Mass, I request all of you to keep your phones in silent mode. Thank you. Let's make sign of the cross in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let's all rise for entrance in. Come and go with me to my Father's house, to my Father's house, to my Father's house. Come and go with me to my Father's house, where there's joy, joy, joy. Jesus is the way to my Father's house, to my Father's house, to my Father's house. Jesus is the way to my Father's house, where there's joy, joy, joy. Jesus is the light in my Father's house, in my Father's house, in my Father's house. Jesus is the light in my Father's house, where there's joy, joy, joy.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all.
And with your spirit.
Welcome to the celebration of the daily TV Mass. My name is Father Seamus Hogan. The televising of this Mass is made possible by the contribution of 3 donors. The first are anonymous donors from Stratford, Ontario, for the intentions of their 5 children and their families. The second is an anonymous donor from Scarborough, Ontario, for improved health and the deceased members of her family. The third are anonymous donors. Our thanks to our donors for the gift of this Mass. Today, as we continue our week of prayers for vocations, we ask all those in the daily TV Mass community to hold in our hearts and prayers our young people who are about to graduate from high school, university, or college, or just entering the workforce. Pope Francis, in his apostolic exhortation, Christus Vivit, to young people and the entire people of God, share that Christ is alive. He is our hope. And in a wonderful way, he brings youth to our world. And everything he touches becomes young, new, full of life. The very first words, then, that I would like to say to every young Christian are these: Christ is alive, and he wants you to be alive. Today, we join together in prayer for our youth, that their faith may be alive in their hearts as they discern their calling in life. Brothers and sisters, let us acknowledge our sins, and so prepare ourselves to celebrate the sacred mysteries. You were sent to heal the contrite of heart. Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
You came to call sinners. Christ, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
You are seated at the right hand of the Father to intercede for us. Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
May Almighty God have mercy on us, forgive us our sins, and bring us to everlasting life.
Amen. Sing to God a song of glory. Easy brings to people honor. Worship we the King of heaven. Praise and bless His holy name.
us pray. O God, who set St. Catherine of Siena on fire with divine love in her contemplation of the Lord's passion and her service to your church, grant through her intercession that your people, participating in the mystery of Christ, may ever exult in the revelation of his glory, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever.
Amen.
In today's first reading, we will get to know that Saul persecutes the church, and as the apostles were scattered to different places, so Philip goes to Samaria and preaches.
First reading. A reading from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 8, verses 1b to 8. And Saul approved of their killing him. That day, a severe persecution began against the church in Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout the countryside of Judea and Samaria. Devout men buried Stephen and made loud lamentation over him. But Saul was ravaging the church by entering house after house. Dragging off both men and women, he committed them to prison. Now those who were scattered went from place to place, proclaiming the word. Philip went down to the city of Samaria and proclaimed the Messiah to them. The crowds, with one accord, listened eagerly to what was said by Philip. Hearing and seeing the signs that he did, for unclean spirits, crying with loud shrieks, came out of many who were possessed, and many others who were paralyzed or lame were cured. So there was great joy in that city. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Let all the earth cry out to God with joy. Let all the earth cry out to God with joy. Make a joyful noise to God, all the earth. Sing the glory of his name. Give to him glorious praise. Say to God, how awesome are your deeds. Let all the earth cry out to God with joy. All the earth worships you. They sing praises to you. Sing praises to your name. Come and see what God has done. He is awesome in his deeds among mortals. Let all the earth cry out to God with joy. He turned the sea into dry land. They passed to the river on foot. They were rejoiced in him who rules by his might forever. Let all the earth cry out to God with joy.
Let's all rise for acclamation.
Hallelujah, 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 now.
In today's Gospel reading, we will hear that Jesus has come to do the will of the Father.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
After Jesus had fed the crowd with the 5 loaves, he said to the people, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But I said to you that you have seen me, and yet do not believe. Everything that the Father gives me will come to me, and anyone who comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. This is indeed the will of my Father, that all who see the Son and believe in him may have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
What is the fundamental human quest in life? The legendary neurologist Sigmund Freud got it wrong. He said that life was primarily a quest for pleasure. The influential psychotherapist Alfred Adler also got it wrong. He said life is primarily a quest for power. Rather, as Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust concentration camp survivor, said, the most fundamental quest is to find meaning in life. I discovered this truth in my university years. At the time I was studying philosophy, and in particular, I was enamored with the existentialist philosophers. These were optimistic people like Jean-Paul Sartre, who, when asked who his neighbor was, said, my neighbor is hell." Or Friedrich Nietzsche, who boldly declared that God is dead. Now, at the same time that I was studying these philosophers, I was also deepening my Catholic faith. I was always brought up in the faith and was active in the church, first as an altar server, and then in later years as a lector. But I didn't have, I think, a deep intellectual formation in my faith. In other words, I didn't really know why the Catholic Church taught the things that she taught. But the more I studied, the more I became aware of the unfathomable depths of God and the mysteries of his church. And that was very satisfying for me. I finally had fundamental answers for the questions I was asking. Answers that satisfied me at a very deep level of my being, as few others could. Even the most brilliant of philosophers were still limited individuals, whereas the Catholic Church could harmonize, humanize, and civilize the deepest emotions in my heart, the deepest longings of my mind and my thought. After much searching, I actually realized what Jesus was talking about in today's gospel. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. I had finally found what I had been searching for, a love which was unconditional. Anyone who comes to me, Jesus says today, I will never drive away. Not only unconditional, but everlasting. All who believe in me, he said, have eternal life. So in a word, I was surprised. He surprised me. And it hit me. The realization that there's nothing more beautiful than to be surprised by the gospel, by the encounter with Christ. There's nothing more beautiful than to know him and to speak to others of our friendship with him. And from that moment, I knew I had to live my life for him. Unexpectedly, I felt drawn to be a priest. And never wanting to live with regrets, I entered St. Augustine Seminary, still not 100% sure if I was meant to be a priest. Well, that was nearly 20 years ago, and I can honestly say that every day of my priesthood has been a blessing, and I couldn't imagine doing or being anything else. To stand in Christ's place, to mediate between humanity and God, offering the prayers of the people of God to Him, and giving God's blessings upon the people. To be able to say over ordinary bread and wine, "This is my body, this is my blood," and to have it become the very body and blood of Jesus. That God would give mere men power over His body. That a penitent person coming into the confessional, feeling nothing but guilt and remorse, could leave after hearing the words, "I absolve you of your sins," renewed, refreshed, restored to their dignity as a son or daughter of God. It's truly humbling, though, because one can never earn this, one never deserves this, and in the end, no one is actually worthy of the priesthood. And that's because, to use the words of St. John Paul II, the priesthood is both gift and mystery. Gift, because it is freely given, not earned, and mystery, because God calls some people and not others. There are many people who are more articulate, more intelligent, and probably more effective and energized than I am. And yet, for some reason, God has not called them necessarily to be priests, but He has called me. And that's humbling. He's not called me because of myself, but actually in spite of myself. And He continues to call. There has always been a shortage of priests. Even in the first century, when people said to Jesus, "We need more servants," Jesus said one thing and one thing alone: pray to the Lord of the harvest that He will send laborers into His harvest. And that's an invitation I give to all of you in our TV Mass community. Every day, I would invite you to pray one Hail Mary for an increase in vocations to the priesthood. One simple Hail Mary. Can you imagine tens and thousands of us all over the world with this simple prayer? God certainly would take notice. How could He ignore so many people with such a just and beautiful prayer crying out to Him? Today and every day, please pray one Hail Mary for an increase in vocations. Allow me to finish with the moving words of the 19th century French Dominican, Jean-Baptiste Lacordaire. His words may seem dated to some, even romantic, perhaps naive, but I would say they're valid all the same, for they come from a deep place in his heart, the heart of a priest, one who knows gift and mystery. The life of the priest. To live in the midst of the world without desiring its pleasures. To be a member of each family, yet belonging to none. To share all sufferings, to penetrate all secrets, to heal all wounds. To go from men to God, offering Him their prayers. To return from God to men, giving them peace and hope. To have a heart of fire for charity and a heart of bronze for chastity. To teach, to pardon, to console, and to bless always. My God, what a life. And it is yours, O priest of Jesus Christ. We now offer our prayers and our petitions to our Heavenly Father. We pray for our teens and young people that they might overcome any fear of unworthiness and truly consider a vocation to priesthood or religious life. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
That the example of religious sisters and brothers will attract many young people to give their lives to Jesus. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For that parents and grandparents have the grace to guide their children through the trials of life and to help them discern not just their careers, but also their vocations. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
We pray for all in our TV Mass community who are struggling in these times or who are uncertain and insecure. We ask that they may experience the mercy of God in their lives and that all of our workers on the front lines may be protected and find meaning in their wonderful work. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
God our Father, send workers into your great harvest so that the gospel is preached, the poor are served with love, the suffering are comforted, and your people are strengthened by the sacraments. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Lord, accept this bread and wine. Take our hearts and make them thine. Take our worries and our anxiety. Give us love and liberty. Change this bread into your body, and this wine into your blood. Change our lives, make us united, Lord, to spread the love of Christ the Lord, to spread the love of Christ the Lord.
Pray, brothers and sisters, that my sacrifice and yours may be acceptable to God, the Almighty Father.
May the Lord accept the sacrifice at your hands for the good praise and glory of his name, for our good and of all his sweet church.
Accept, O Lord, the saving sacrifice we offer in commemoration of Saint Catherine, so that instructed by her teaching, we may give ever more fervent thanks to you, the one true God, through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit,
Lift up your hearts.
we lift them up to the Lord.
Let us give thanks to the Lord our God.
It is right and just.
It is truly right and just, our duty and our salvation, always and everywhere to give you thanks, Lord, Holy Father, Almighty and eternal God. For in the saints who consecrated themselves to Christ for the sake of the kingdom of heaven, it is right to celebrate the wonders of your providence, by which you call human nature back to its original holiness and bring it to experience on this earth the gifts you promise in the new world to come. And so with all the angels and saints we praise you, as without end we acclaim.
Holy, holy, holy Lord, God of power and might. Heaven and earth of your glory are full. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Holy, holy, holy Lord, God of power and might. Heaven and earth of your glory are full. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Holy, holy, holy Lord, God of power and might. Heaven and earth of your glory are full. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest.
You are indeed holy, O Lord, the fount of all holiness. Make holy, therefore, these gifts, we pray, by sending down your Spirit upon them like the dewfall, so that they may become for us the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. At the time he was betrayed and entered willingly into his passion, he took bread, and giving thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take this, all of you, and eat of it. For this is my body, which will be given up for you."
My Lord, my God.
In a similar way, when supper was ended, he took the chalice, and once more giving thanks, he gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take this, all of you, and drink from it. For this is the chalice of my blood, the blood of the new and eternal covenant, which will be poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. Do this in memory of me."
My Lord, my God.
The mystery of faith.
We proclaim your death, O Lord, and profess your resurrection until you come again.
Therefore, as we celebrate the memorial of his death and resurrection, we offer you, Lord, the bread of life and the chalice of salvation, giving thanks that you have held us worthy to be in your presence and minister to you. Humbly we pray that partaking of the body and blood of Christ, we may be gathered into one by the Holy Spirit. Remember, Lord, your church spread throughout the world and bring her to the fullness of charity, together with Francis our Pope and Thomas our Bishop and all the clergy. Remember also our brothers and sisters who have fallen asleep in the hope of the resurrection, and all who have died in your mercy. Welcome them into the light of your face. Have mercy on us all, we pray, that with the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God, with blessed Joseph, her spouse, with the blessed apostles, and all the saints who have pleased you throughout the ages, we may merit to be co-heirs to eternal life, and may praise and glorify you through your Son, Jesus Christ. Through him and with him and in him, O God, Almighty Father, in the unity of the Holy Spirit, all glory and honor is yours forever and ever.
Amen.
At the Savior's command, and formed by divine teaching, we dare to say,
Our Father,
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil.
Deliver us, Lord, we pray, from every evil. Graciously grant us peace in our days, that by the help of your mercy we may be always free from sin and safe from all distress, as we await the blessed hope and the coming of our Savior, Jesus Christ.
For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever.
Lord Jesus Christ, who said to your apostles, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give you," look not on our sins, but on the faith of your church, and graciously grant her peace and unity in accordance with your will, who live and reign forever and ever.
Amen.
The peace of the Lord be with you always.
And with your spirit.
Let us share with one another the sign of peace.
Lamb of God,
You take away the sin of the world. Have mercy on us. Lamb of God, you take away the sin of the world. Have mercy on us. Lamb of God, you take away the of the world, grant us peace.
Behold the Lamb of God. Behold him who takes away the sins of the world. Blessed are those who are called to the supper of the Lamb. Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof, but only say the word, and my soul shall be healed.
Since we cannot receive the Holy Communion, let us remember our first Holy Communion and our best moment when we received the body and blood of Christ. Remembering that, let us partake in this spiritual communion by saying this prayer. O Immaculate Queen of heaven and earth, Mother of God and Creator of every grace, I believe that your dearly beloved Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, is truly, really, and substantially contained in the most holy sacrament. I love him above all things and long to receive him in my heart. Since now I cannot receive him sacramentally, be so good to place him spiritually in my soul and never permit me to be separated from him. Amen. This is my will, my one command, that love should dwell among you all. This is my will. Let us say the prayer after communion of St. Thomas. I thank you, Lord, Almighty Father, everlasting God, for having been pleased, through no merit of mine, but of your great mercy alone, to feed me, a sinner, and your unworthy servant, with the precious body and blood of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. I pray that this Holy Communion may not be for my judgment and condemnation, but for my pardon and salvation. Let this Holy Communion be to me an armor of faith and a shield of goodwill, a cleansing of all vices and a rooting out of all evil desires. May it increase love and patience, humility and obedience, and all virtues. May it be a firm defense against the evil designs of all my visible and invisible enemies, a perfect quieting of all my desires of soul and body. May this Holy Communion bring about a perfect union with you, the one true God, and at last enable me to reach eternal bliss when you will call me. I pray that you bring me, a sinner, to the indescribable feast, where you, with your Son and the Holy Spirit, are to your saints true light, full blessedness, everlasting joy, and perfect happiness, through the same Christ our Lord. Amen. Let us say the prayer for priest of Saint Therese. O Jesus, eternal priest, keep your priests within the shelter of your sacred heart, where none may touch them. Keep unstained their anointed hands, which daily touch your sacred body. Keep unsullied their lips, lily purple with your precious blood. Keep pure and unearthly their hearts, sealed with the sublime mark of the priesthood. Let your holy love surround them and shield them from the world's temptation. Bless their labors with the abundant fruit, and may the souls to whom they minister be their joy and consolation here and in heaven, their beautiful and everlasting crown. Amen.
Let us pray. May the heavenly table at which we have been fed, O Lord, confer eternal life upon us, even as in this world it nourished the life of Saint Catherine, through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life.
Thanks be to God.
Oh, how we love Mary to praise you, honor your name, bless you always. You are the Almighty Father, thank you for giving us this life. Thank you, Lord, for loving us unconditionally. Help us, Lord, that the life that you have given to us, to all of us, help us, Lord, that every moment, every second, every minute of our life we can dedicate to you. We can give to you as a gift. For this, we pray, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. We'll say the Memorare together. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, or implored thy help, or sought thy intercession, was left unaided. Inspired with this confidence, I fly to thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my Mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. O Queen of Heaven, rejoice now. Alleluia. Rejoice, for he who merit thou despair. Alleluia. He is risen, as he foretold. Alleluia. Pray for us to the Father. Alleluia.
Rejoice and be glad, O Virgin Mary. Alleluia.
For the Lord has truly risen. Alleluia.
Let us pray.
O God, you deem to give joy to the world through the resurrection of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Grant, we beseech you, that through his mother, the Virgin Mary, we may obtain the joy of everlasting life through the same Christ our Lord. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Virgin Mary, pray for us. Saint Joseph, pray for us. Saint Faustina, pray for us. Saint Jose Maria Escriva, pray for us. Let's all make sign of the cross in the name of the Father, and of the Son,
and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, friends, for joining us in this virtual Holy Mass. Have a blessed week. Stay safe and take precautions.